Today is Wednesday, July 1st, and this is your forecast for the northeastern United States. Well, it is July and right on schedule. We have some extreme heat here across the entire Northeast, and this is not to be taken lightly because the temperatures and the heat indices that we're expecting are some of the hottest that we've seen in several years, and it's not even just a 1 or 2 day thing. This could go on for several days, which puts a huge amount of stress on our bodies. It puts a huge amount of stress on our electrical grid. So there's a lot to consider here as we move forward here through the rest of the week. We do have various heat warnings and heat advisories that are in effect. You can get the Weather with Erick app and find out exactly which is in effect where you live. But they're pretty much for the entire Northeast. A large section, millions of people are under what we call an excessive heat warning. Again, not to be taken lightly, that heat puts a lot of stress on our bodies. Let's take a look at the forecast. We are already off to a really warm start. Temperatures climbing quickly through the 70s into the 80s, and we will end up in the mid and upper 90s this afternoon. That's just what the thermometer says. We'll get into that in a moment, what it actually will feel like. And then later on this evening, it remains hot. I don't think temperatures overnight are going to dip much below 80 degrees. So this is what it's going to feel like. In New York City, we get a little bit of a break from the ocean breeze in the afternoon, but heat indices will peak between 100 and 105 today. But you head away from the ocean, and 114 is what it'll feel like in Albany. 111 is what it'll feel like in Syracuse, and a little bit of a break from Lake Erie. A cool breeze in the afternoon will offset what will be eventually a heat index during the afternoon that peaks at around 100 to 105. So here's the actual air temperatures. It looks like as we go through the afternoon, most areas will be in the upper 90s to around 100. That's what the thermometer will say. Again, this is what it'll feel like, but this is what the thermometer will say. And then tonight, that's part of the problem. If you don't have air conditioning and you're relying on the cool nights to help cool you off, it just doesn't happen with this type of setup. The very coolest temperatures happen first thing in the morning, and that's where we end up. Not even much below 80 in the New York metro. In fact, most areas in the mid and upper 70s by tomorrow morning, and then we start to warm up again. So several days of that, as I mentioned, especially without air conditioning, puts a stress on your bodies. The chance for a thunderstorm here is pretty minimal. It looks like late tonight there could be a couple of storms in central New York. There could also be a couple of storms in far upstate New York that fire up, and maybe even a few off a lake breeze off of Erie, but for the most part staying pretty dry the next couple of days. Some record-breaking heat in the New York metro and throughout the Northeast as we peak near 100 for tomorrow and Friday, and maybe even Saturday too. The heat index value is going to be up there around 110 degrees. That is dangerous heat. Just make sure you're listening to your bodies, taking lots of breaks, checking on those that are vulnerable, the sick, the elderly, watching your kids, making sure that they're staying hydrated, and of course, don't forget your pets. And I will say this, I know it sounds super uncomfortable, but it is recommended to keep your thermostat at 75 degrees to lessen the burden on the grid. If the power goes out because we're using too much electricity as the collective, well, then you're going to have nothing to cool you off. But if we can keep that air conditioning on, but at 75, it'll be worth it in the long run. So something to consider. That is your Wednesday morning weather update. Stay cool, stay hydrated, and I'll see you all in just a few days with another weather update.